Right now I'm visualizing how I'm going to replace my brake sensor in my left rear wheel of my car. It had a bolt bolting it in, and you turn the bolt and it snaps off. It's a very common problem. I should have been more gentle. I thought I was being gentle, but I mean, I could have definitely been more gentle. You're supposed to turn it tighter and then looser, tighter and then looser, very gently, slowly breaking up some of that rust and slowly working it out. And I didn't realize this was a common problem. I just snapped the head of that bolt right off. So now the sensor's still in there, but with a rusty bolt snapped off with no way to access it with the tool. And it's at a weird angle. It's like up in there and you can't really get a drill at it. So I'm thinking, do I use an easy out? Do I weld a nut onto the back of it and then get a tool onto the nut? That's probably my best bet. I'm exploring all of my options mentally right now. I've also considered building a tight angle drill, but that's a lot of work just to do this job. Even though I'd like to have a custom drill that is, you know, really stubby and short and you can get it into tight places, I feel that that is outside of the scope of this project and I don't have time to do that right now. I think it actually could be a smart move to remove the sensor, break it off, whatever, get it out of there, and then try to remove that bolt. In fact, it even gave me the option just to grind the bolt flat and then not even bolt on the replacement sensor. Just glue it in place or strap it in place or something rig jobby. So yeah, I think I should remove the sensor. But the sensor is welded to that snapped off rusty bolt. And the housing of the sensor is metal. It's metal on metal. It's actually metal welded to that bolt. So I have to pretty much break the sensor to pieces, possibly melt it off. All the plastic of the sensor could be melted with my soldering iron, and then I could try to work it out after I melt it to pieces. Yeah, so I'm probably going to want to melt. I'll have to bring my soldering iron out there, or my wood burner, and I'll just melt the crap out of the sensor until I can remove it, leaving just the metal stuff to work with. The metal stuff, I might just, I might have to use a Dremel sanding disc to grind away the housing from the sensor that's sealed, rusted shut onto that snapped off bolt. If I can grind that away and chip it off, then I'll just be exposed with this, just the rusted up bolt that has no bolt head. I can then weld a nut to that and get it off. I'll probably need some penetrating fluid to really loosen it and give myself the best shot possible. But I feel like the welding and then shocking it with the cold water will break it up enough that I can gently remove it. And then pretty much we can just bolt in the new one, although the new one I won't have a bolt for then. Unless if I use the same rusted bolt that I repaired, basically. I mean, I guess the bolt would be usable again at that point. Maybe. It'd have the right thread pitch. Maybe I'll use the old bolt. Alright, so I'm going to melt this sensor off, basically. You can see right here is where the bolt snapped off. It was right up here, the bolt head. This is all metal housing around here. So I'm separating, this is all plastic housing, like this figure 8. So I'm going to make a line right here, separating this from this. That way this can pull out, but this can stay in.
I feel like this wood burner is the best way to cut this because it's plastic. Maybe like from right here you could see better. I don't know. I brought screwdrivers and all kinds of stuff. I brought a hammer. I brought small channel locks, pliers, and a vice grip. So something's got to work, right? Woo! Came popped right out. You can see where I made my cut. You see the cut? You can see where the bolt sheared off. You can see where I cut with the wood burner. You can see that's where the wheel sensor goes in. And here's the wheel sensor. So now we got to try to get all that out next. The sheared off bolt and the metal housing. That's going to be the next challenge. My next step is to get a screwdriver behind the metal housing and pry it out. And I got to be able to hammer it under there. A flathead screwdriver should be able to fit. I don't see why not. Yeah, it's a tight fit, but they're not, the metal, it has separation. It might be like 1/100th of a millimeter, but they're not going to be attached. They're different types of metal. They won't be sealed shut with rust, I don't think. moving. Guys, I'm getting it 100%. Let me show you. Alright, I'm gonna use this as leverage. A fulcrum. Oh yeah! A screwdriver I felt wouldn't be as sharp at like getting back behind there, so I used a sharp pointed knife. I felt like that would be flatter than a flathead screwdriver, and the point of that thing just managed to barely get behind there and start it. You could probably use a kitchen knife too. So now we just have the stud of the broken bolt here. And we'll weld a nut onto it so we can unscrew it. It needs to be centered so I can get a socket on it though after I'm done welding it in. I'm welding a nut. Well, I'll show you. Here we have a bolt that sheared off, the head sheared off. We're going to weld on this nut so that we can unscrew it, because otherwise that's not coming out. So we're welding this nut right here, but we got to be able to get a socket onto it. So if it's off-centered like this, we're screwed. We have to make sure there's clearance on all sides so I can turn it once it's welded. There's not much clearance around here. And this is kind of a big nut. But I think if it's right like that, I might be able to get a socket on it. If not, I might be able to get it off with like a socket wrench as opposed to a socket. I think I have to clean this thing off though. It's so rusty, I don't think welding will stick to it. Alright, got it on there pretty well. I'll show you guys how I got it on. You can see it's not completely on. You can see out, like you can still see the back of the bolt, but it's on pretty good. I could maybe nudge it on a little more with the hammer. Holy crap, guys, it moved! Shoot! It moved because the weld failed. Alright, that was a morale herder, a real bad one.